"Mama's getting engaged today," the smallest one, Mimi, chirped, her voice as bright as the morning sun glinting off the skyscrapers. Her tiny fingers clutched a wilting dandelion, its yellow head bobbing with each skip she took. Tao Tao, the elder twin, frowned, scuffing his shoe against the pavement. "Engaged doesn't mean married," he muttered, a strange maturity clouding his young features. Lily, the other twin, tugged at her brother's sleeve. "But it's a party, Tao Tao. With cake." A fleeting smile touched Tao Tao's lips, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. He remembered the hushed whispers, the furtive glances, the way their mother's smile never quite reached her eyes these days. Something felt off. He couldn't quite place it, but a knot of unease tightened in his small stomach. He wished they were back in their old apartment, cramped and leaky though it was. At least there, things were predictable. 6 years ago, the air hung heavy with the scent of lilies and anticipation. Zhiyan smoothed down the silk of her qipao, the intricate embroidery a cool touch against her skin. Her reflection shimmered in the ornate mirror, a vision of elegant composure. But beneath the carefully crafted facade, a tremor of anxiety ran through her. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, the day she pledged herself to the man she loved. Yet, a nagging premonition, a prickle of unease, whispered in the back of her mind. Xuenou, her younger sister, bustled into the room, her smile wide and effusive. "You look beautiful, Jijia," she chirped, handing Zhiyan a glass of champagne. "Let's celebrate this joyous occasion." Zhiyan hesitated, a flicker of suspicion crossing her face. Xuenou's enthusiasm seemed excessive. She pushed the thought aside, attributing it to pre-wedding jitters. "Thank you, Xuenou," she murmured, taking a sip of the bubbly liquid. The taste was slightly off, a bitter undercurrent beneath the sweetness. She dismissed it, blaming her overactive nerves. Xuenou's smile widened, a subtle glint in her eyes that Zhiyan missed. The champagne slipped down Zhiyan's throat, a burning sensation spreading through her chest. The room began to spin, the elegant decor blurring into a kaleidoscope of colors. Her limbs felt heavy, her thoughts sluggish. She swayed, clutching at the vanity for support. Xuenou watched her, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. "Today is my engagement day, Jijia," she whispered, her voice dripping with venom. "And you won't be stealing my spotlight." Zhiyan struggled to speak, her tongue feeling thick and clumsy. "Xuenou, what have you done?" She stumbled back, her hand flying to her throat. Xuenou's eyes hardened, the mask of sisterly affection falling away. "I'm going to find someone to sleep with you," she hissed, her words laced with malice. "Then, we'll see who Huo Tingjun chooses, the virtuous Shen Zhiyan, or the ruined one." Terror clawed at Zhiyan's throat. She tried to scream, but only a choked gasp escaped her lips. The world tilted, plunging into darkness. The memory, sharp and brutal, ripped through Zhiyan, leaving a bitter taste in her mouth. She pressed her hand against her temple, trying to quell the throbbing pain. The children's chatter, once a comforting melody, now grated on her nerves. She watched them, a wave of protectiveness washing over her. They were the reason she had endured, the reason she had clawed her way back from the abyss. She wouldn't let Xuenou, or anyone else, hurt them. She had been naive 6 years ago, blinded by love and trust. But not anymore. This time, she would be prepared. A sleek black car pulled up beside them, the tinted windows obscuring the occupants. The chauffeur stepped out, his face impassive. "Madam Shen," he addressed Zhiyan, his voice respectful yet distant. "Mr. Huo requests your presence." Zhiyan's heart hammered against her ribs. Huo Tingjun. The man she was supposed to marry. The man who had unknowingly fathered her children. The man who now believed she was Xuenou. The tangled web of deceit felt like a noose tightening around her neck. She glanced at her children, their innocent faces turned up to hers. "Mama?" Mimi whispered, her eyes wide with curiosity. Zhiyan forced a smile, a fragile mask to hide the turmoil within. "It's all right, sweetheart," she murmured, stroking the little girl's hair. "Mama will be back soon." The car glided through the city streets, a steel and glass cocoon separating Zhiyan from the world outside. She closed her eyes, trying to compose herself. She needed to think clearly, to strategize. This encounter with Huo Tingjun was a dangerous game, one wrong move could shatter everything she had built. She recalled the fragmented memories of that night, the hazy images of a stranger's face, the chilling realization that she had been drugged, violated. The whispered plea, "I've been drugged, help me," echoed in her mind, a desperate cry lost in the darkness. The car pulled up to the imposing gates of the Huo family estate. Zhiyan took a deep breath, steeling herself for the confrontation. This was her chance to reclaim her life, to expose Xuenou's treachery, to finally tell Huo Tingjun the truth. But as she stepped out of the car, a figure emerged from the shadows, a figure that made her blood run cold. It wasn't Huo Tingjun. It was Shen Zhiyan, her father, his face etched with a chilling mixture of anger and fear. He grabbed her arm, his grip like a vice. "Zhiyan," he hissed, his voice low and menacing. "You need to leave. Now." The knot in Zhiyan's stomach tightened. This was just the beginning. The low hum of the city, a muted symphony of distant sirens and the rhythmic pulse of traffic, filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Huo Tingjun's office. Night had draped itself over the metropolis, transforming the glass into reflective surfaces that mirrored the stark elegance of the room. Huo Tingjun, his features etched with a mixture of fatigue and frustration, sat behind his expansive desk, the polished mahogany gleaming under the soft glow of a desk lamp. He tapped a pen against a stack of reports, the rhythmic clicks echoing in the quiet office. His associates, Lin Wei and Chenan, stood before him, the tension in their postures palpable. "We searched all night," Lin Wei began, his voice tinged with apology. "Hospitals, clinics, even questioned staff at nearby hotels, but we still haven't found the woman from last night." Each word felt heavy, weighted with the gravity of their failure. Huo Tingjun's gaze remained fixed on the reports, his expression unreadable. Useless, he thought, a flicker of irritation sparking within him. The woman, a fleeting memory of soft skin and a concerned voice. A phantom limb, almost, a presence felt but not grasped. He needed to find her. Not just to thank her for her intervention last night, but for something more, something he couldn't quite articulate, a nagging sense of incompleteness. He felt a strange compulsion, a pull towards this unknown woman. Was it merely gratitude, or something deeper? He pushed the thought away, annoyed by his own irrationality. "There has to be something," Huo Tingjun finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. He lifted his gaze, pinning his associates with a sharp look. "A clue, a witness, anything." He rubbed his temples, trying to dispel the lingering effects of the poison. It had weakened him, left him vulnerable, a feeling he abhorred. He needed answers, needed to regain control. Chenan shifted nervously, clearing his throat. "We did manage to recover this," he said, extending a small, sealed evidence bag. Inside, a delicate silver hairpin, adorned with a single pearl, shimmered under the lamplight. Huo Tingjun took the bag, his fingers brushing against the cool plastic. He examined the hairpin, its intricate design a stark contrast to its simple elegance. It held a faint, lingering floral scent, a whisper of the woman's presence. Jasmine, he thought, the realization striking him with unexpected clarity. "She wore jasmine perfume," Huo Tingjun murmured, his eyes still fixed on the hairpin. A faint memory stirred within him, the subtle fragrance mingling with the antiseptic smell of the hospital room. He closed his eyes, trying to conjure a clearer image of the woman. Her face remained elusive, shrouded in a hazy mist, but he remembered her touch, the cool firmness of her hand on his forehead. "Anything else?" he pressed, his voice tight. He handed the bag back to Chenin, the subtle scent of jasmine lingering on his fingers, a tantalizingly incomplete puzzle piece. Lin Wei hesitated, then spoke, his voice low. "There's one more thing. The doctor mentioned a birthmark." He paused, gauging Huo Tingjun's reaction. Huo Tingjun's gaze sharpened. "A birthmark?" "Yes," Lin Wei confirmed. "A butterfly-shaped birthmark on her chest." He looked away, a flicker of unease crossing his face. The detail felt strangely intimate, a violation of the unknown woman's privacy. Huo Tingjun felt a jolt, a strange mixture of anticipation and something else. Intrigue? He couldn't define it. The detail felt significant, a crucial piece of the puzzle. A butterfly, he thought. The image seemed to flutter in his mind, a symbol of transformation, of rebirth. He felt a sudden, irrational conviction that finding this woman was more important than he had initially realized. "Find her," Huo Tingjun commanded, his voice resonating with a newfound determination. He stood up, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the room. "Use every resource at your disposal. I want to know who she is." He felt a restless energy coursing through him, a sense of urgency that he hadn't felt before. The woman, the poison, the birthmark, it all felt connected, part of a larger, more intricate pattern. He needed to unravel the threads, to see the complete picture. Lin Wei and Chenin exchanged a look, a silent acknowledgement of the gravity of their task. They both knew that Huo Tingjun was not a man to be trifled with. His commands were not requests, but decrees. "Yes, sir," they responded in unison, their voices crisp and professional, masking the internal trepidation they felt. The search had just become a hunt, and they were the hounds unleashed. As they left the office, the faint scent of jasmine lingered in the air, a silent promise of the mystery that awaited them. Huo Tingjun remained standing by the window, his gaze fixed on the glittering cityscape. The city lights seemed to blur, transforming into a swirling vortex of possibilities. Somewhere out there, in this vast urban labyrinth, was the woman with the butterfly birthmark. He would find her. He had to. Not just for answers, but for something more, something he was only beginning to understand. The subtle scent of jasmine hung in the air, a silent echo of a fleeting encounter, a whisper of a destiny yet to unfold. The humid air hung heavy as Shen Zhiyan stepped off the plane, the scent of jet fuel clinging to her clothes. 6 years. 6 years she had been away, a phantom limb of the Shen family, excised and discarded. Returning felt like stepping into a wound, a raw, throbbing reminder of everything she had lost. Her 3 children trailed behind her, small shadows mirroring her cautious steps. Xiao Yi, the eldest, clutched a worn teddy bear, his dark eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings with unsettling maturity. Behind him, the twins, Xiao Er and Xiao San, held hands, their identical faces etched with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Mama," Xiao Yi's small voice broke the silence, "are we really going to see him?" Zhiyan knelt, her hands smoothing his unruly hair. "Yes, my love. We are." Her heart clenched. This wasn't just about Huo Tingjun, it was about reclaiming her life, her honor. It was about giving her children the future they deserved, a future free from the shadow of her expulsion. "Remember what we discussed?" The twins nodded in unison, their pigtails bouncing. "DNA test," they chirped together, their voices echoing in the cavernous airport terminal. A flicker of a smile touched Zhiyan's lips. Her children, her brilliant, extraordinary children. They were her strength, her reason for enduring the whispers, the accusations, the isolation. Precisely. We need proof. Irrefutable proof. She stood, her gaze hardening. Shen Zhiyan, her own father, had orchestrated her downfall. He had traded her for a business deal, sacrificing his own daughter to appease the Huo family's insatiable hunger for status. Now, she was back to dismantle his carefully constructed lies, brick by deceptive brick. But Mama, Xiao'er piped up, tilting her head, what if he's not at the airport? Zhiyan's hand instinctively went to the small device concealed in her pocket. I already used radio tracking. Huo Tingjun is at the airport today. A private jet. He's expected to depart within the hour. She had learned much in her exile, skills that extended far beyond medicine. Survival had demanded it. The twins exchanged a look, a silent communication passing between them. Then let's go, Xiaoshen declared, her small hand already reaching for Zhiyan's. As they navigated the bustling terminal, Zhiyan's mind raced. This encounter was crucial. Everything rested on it. She had to tread carefully, revealing just enough to pique Huo Tingjun's interest without exposing the full extent of the deception. The risk was immense, but the potential reward her children's future was worth it. Suddenly, a black limousine pulled up to the curb, its tinted windows obscuring the occupants. Zhiyan's pulse quickened. This was it. Huo Tingjun. But how to approach him? Security would be tight. A direct confrontation would be foolish. Before Zhiyan could formulate a plan, Xiao Yi stepped forward, his small hand outstretched. Babies, Zhiyan whispered, a knot of anxiety tightening in her chest, our strength doesn't allow it. She knew what they were capable of, the unusual strength they possessed, a side effect of the experimental treatments she had undergone during her pregnancy. She had sworn to protect them, to keep their abilities hidden from the world's prying eyes. But the twins were already moving. With a speed that belied their age, they darted towards the limousine, their small hands impacting the vehicle with a force that sent a tremor through the metal. The car shuddered, its tires screeching against the pavement, coming to an abrupt halt. Zhiyan's breath caught in her throat. The audacity of it. The sheer recklessness. Yet, a strange sense of pride mingled with her fear. Her children, her protectors. The chauffeur, pale and trembling, stumbled out of the car, his eyes wide with disbelief. The back window slowly lowered, revealing Huo Tingjun, his face impassive, his gaze fixed on the twins. Stopping a car with bare hands, a voice murmured beside Zhiyan. It was Hu Yanlang, Huo Tingjun's younger brother, a man whose sharp intellect and quiet observation she had underestimated in the past. A ghost of a smile played on his lips. A small case for her. He gestured towards Zhiyan. His eyes held a knowing glint, a hint of something akin to admiration. Zhiyan met his gaze, her mind scrambling to regain control of the situation. Mr. Huo, she addressed Huo Tingjun, her voice calm despite the turmoil within, I believe we have something to discuss. She held his gaze, a silent challenge in her eyes. The game had begun. The soft click of the door latching behind her was swallowed by the plush carpet. Shen Zhiyan exhaled, a slow release of the tension that had coiled in her chest all day. The suite, bathed in the muted glow of bedside lamps, felt like a sanctuary, a temporary reprieve from the whirlwind of events that had brought her back to Yuncheng. Her fingers, still slightly trembling, fumbled with the light switch, illuminating the expansive room. She hadn't anticipated such luxury, such a stark contrast to the cramped apartment she and the children had called home for the past 6 years. A wave of exhaustion washed over her. Just a few hours, she thought, just a few hours of rest before facing whatever tomorrow brings. She had no idea how much those few hours would change everything. The bathroom door stood slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling onto the polished floor. Steam, fragrant with something floral and subtly sweet, curled around the frame. Zhiyan hesitated. Had the hotel staff not finished servicing the room? She called out softly, "Hello? Is anyone there?" No response. She pushed the door open further, the steam thickening around her, carrying with it the distinct scent of sandalwood and something else. Something distinctly masculine. A low hum, the sound of someone humming a tuneless melody, reached her ears. Alarm bells began to clang in her head. This wasn't right. Before she could process the thought, a figure emerged from behind the frosted glass of the shower stall. Tall, broad-shouldered, water cascading down his bare chest. Zhiyan froze, her breath catching in her throat. A scream threatened to erupt, but it died in her chest, replaced by a strange, disorienting wave of recognition. The man's face, still obscured by a veil of water, turned towards her. A pair of sharp, dark eyes locked onto hers. The humming stopped abruptly. A beat of silence, heavy and charged, hung in the air before his voice, deep and laced with surprise, cut through the stillness. "Who is this? Why are you in my room?" Zhiyan's mind raced, scrambling for an explanation, for a way out of this mortifying situation. His room? This is my room. The key. The receptionist, too, was given this room, she stammered, her voice barely a whisper, clutching the keycard in her hand as if it were a lifeline. She couldn't tear her gaze away from him, from the way the water clung to his skin, from the hard planes of his chest, the raw masculinity radiating from him. It was unsettling, intoxicating. The man's eyes narrowed, suspicion hardening his features. He reached for a towel, wrapping it around his waist. "There must be a mistake. This is my suite." He stepped out of the bathroom, his movements fluid and controlled despite the awkwardness of the situation. The sandalwood scent intensified, filling the air, making her head spin. Zhiyan backed away, her heart pounding against her ribs. This can't be happening. Not after everything else today. Suddenly, the door burst open, and three small figures tumbled into the room, their voices echoing in the sudden quiet. "Mommy! We're hungry. Mommy, look what I found. Mommy, he's naked." The last exclamation, delivered in the clear, unfiltered voice of her youngest, sent a fresh wave of heat surging through Zhiyan's face. The man's gaze shifted to the children, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Zhiyan's protective instincts kicked in. She moved to shield them, her body positioned between them and the stranger. "My children. I won't let anyone hurt them. Go back inside," she hissed, pushing them gently towards the adjoining room. "I'll be there in a minute." The oldest, ever perceptive, looked from her flushed face to the man and back again. A mischievous glint appeared in his eyes. "But mommy," he said, his voice laced with exaggerated innocence, "didn't you say it's not polite to stare?" Zhiyan wanted the floor to swallow her whole. She could feel the man's eyes boring into her, his expression a mixture of disbelief and amusement. "This is a nightmare." The second child, never one to be left out, chimed in. "Mommy, is he the man from the park? The one who was watching us?" The man's amusement vanished. His eyes, now cold and assessing, fixed on Zhiyan. "The park," he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. Zhiyan's mind raced. "Think, Zhiyan, think." She forced a laugh, a brittle, unconvincing sound. "Children have such active imaginations," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "They're always making things up. The man took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. First you spy on me showering, he paused, his voice dripping with sarcasm, and now you want to strip me? Zhiyan's cheeks burned. I wasn't spying, she retorted, her voice rising in indignation. And I most certainly do not want to, she trailed off, realizing how ridiculous that sounded. The man's lips curved into a cynical smile. Everything that happened today is just a coincidence. Zhiyan swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. She couldn't explain. Not without revealing the truth about her past, about her family, about the reason she was really back in Yuncheng. And she wasn't ready to do that. Not to this stranger. Her eldest son, sensing her distress, stepped forward. He's lying, Mommy, he said, his small hand gripping hers. He's the one who bumped into us at the mall and then pretended he didn't know us. He looked up at the man, his gaze unwavering. You're the richest man in Yuncheng. Huo Tingjun. The air in the room crackled with tension. Zhiyan's blood ran cold. Huo Tingjun. The name echoed in her mind, a name synonymous with power, wealth, and the man her sister was desperately trying to marry. She looked at the man before her, truly looked at him for the first time, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. The sharp jawline, the intense eyes, the aura of command. It was him. The man who held her family's fate in his hands. And she was standing in his hotel room, half-dressed children at her side, caught in a web of lies and misunderstandings of her own making. The opulent ballroom shimmered, a kaleidoscope of silk and crystal, reflecting the glittering jewels adorning the guests. Xuenou, resplendent in a designer gown, moved through the crowd with the practiced grace of a queen holding court. Her laughter, light and melodic, reached Shen Zhiyan where she stood, partially concealed behind a towering arrangement of white lilies. The fragrance, usually a comfort, felt cloying, suffocating. Each laugh was a tiny, sharp stab, a reminder of the life stolen, the happiness meticulously constructed on a foundation of lies. 6 years. The thought echoed in the hollow chambers of Zhiyan's heart. 6 years of exile, of whispers and accusations, of struggling to build a life amidst the ruins of her past. Tonight, the past had returned, shimmering and seductive, wrapped in the guise of her sister's triumph. Zhiyan watched as Shen Zhiyan, their father, beamed with pride, his arm linked with Xuenou's. His gaze, usually cold and calculating, now radiated an almost paternal warmth. Almost. Zhiyan's lip curled. She knew that warmth was reserved for the golden goose, the daughter who would secure the Huo family's fortune. A wave of nausea threatened to overwhelm her. She pressed her hand against the cool marble of a nearby pillar, grounding herself. Not yet. Not until I've said my piece. As the music swelled, announcing the arrival of the groom's family, Xuenou's smile widened, a predatory gleam in her eyes. Zhiyan's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. She had to act. Now. Before the charade progressed any further. Pushing past the throng of guests, Zhiyan felt 100 eyes turn her way. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Good. Let them stare. Let them witness the return of the ghost they thought they'd buried. Shen Zhiyan, Zhiyan's voice, though quiet, cut through the murmur like a shard of glass. Xuenou froze, her smile faltering. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, met Zhiyan's. For a fleeting moment, a flicker of fear, raw and unmasked, danced in their depths. Then, it vanished, replaced by a carefully constructed mask of disdain. Zhiyan. What are you doing here? Xuenou's voice dripped with feigned surprise, a performance for the benefit of the onlookers. Long time no see, Zhiyan replied, her voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil raging within. She allowed a small, chilling smile to play on her lips. I wouldn't miss your engagement party for the world. The color drained from Xuenou's face. Shen Zhiyan, alerted by the commotion, hurried towards them, his face a mask of displeasure. Zhiyan. What is the meaning of this? He hissed, his voice low and menacing. Before Zhiyan could respond, a new voice, smooth and commanding, cut through the tense atmosphere. I believe I should be the one asking questions. All heads turned towards the source of the voice. A man, tall and imposing, stepped forward. His features, sharp and aristocratic, held an air of quiet authority. Beside him stood another man, equally striking, but with a more approachable, almost playful demeanor. Yanlang. Xuenou stammered, her eyes fixed on the second man. Xuenou, Hui Yanlang replied, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Allow me to introduce my brother, Huo Tingjun. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Shen Zhiyan's face paled. Xuenou swayed, as if struck a physical blow. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling around her. Zhiyan's mind raced. Huo Tingjun's name resonated with a strange familiarity. Suddenly, pieces of the puzzle began to click into place. The whispered conversations, the furtive glances, the carefully worded pronouncements about the groom's identity, it had all been a meticulously orchestrated deception. What is this? Xuenou stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Huo Tingjun stepped forward, his gaze settling on Zhiyan. His eyes, dark and inscrutable, held a flicker of something she couldn't quite decipher. Recognition. Curiosity. Something more. Shen Xuenou, Huo Tingjun's voice was calm, yet laced with steel. It seems there has been a misunderstanding. My brother and I share a similar build, and a penchant for privacy. A convenient coincidence, wouldn't you agree? He paused, letting his words sink in. The silence in the ballroom was thick, suffocating. Then, he turned his gaze back to Zhiyan, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. Shen Zhiyan, he said, his voice low and resonant. 6 years ago, you were wronged. Tonight, the truth will be revealed. A tremor ran through Zhiyan. She met his gaze, her heart pounding against her ribs. The fear that had been a constant companion for so long began to recede, replaced by a surge of something akin to hope. What you did to me back then, Zhiyan said, her voice trembling slightly, I will get it back from you. The words hung in the air, a promise, a threat, a declaration of war. Shen Xuenou recoiled as if struck. Her face, stripped of its carefully crafted mask, was a canvas of fear and desperation. No, it wasn't me. It was father. Shen Zhiyan's face contorted in rage. Silence, you fool. But it was too late. The dam had burst. The truth, suppressed for so long, was finally spilling out, washing away the carefully constructed facade of respectability and revealing the ugliness beneath. Zhiyan straightened, drawing strength from the chaos unfolding around her. I am no longer the bullied Shen Zhiyan of 6 years ago, she declared, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. The whispers around her faded, replaced by a stunned silence. The spotlight, once focused on Shen Xuenou, now shone squarely on her. And in that moment, Zhiyan knew that her fight had just begun. The opulent ballroom, still shimmering with the remnants of the evening's festivities, felt miles away. Shen Zhiyan sat in the sterile quiet of her temporary apartment, the echoes of the night a dissonant hum in her mind. Her fingers traced the rim of a teacup, the warmth failing to penetrate the icy unease that had settled within her. The engagement ball, a whirlwind of forced smiles and veiled barbs from Shen Xuenou, had left her feeling strangely hollow. It was a victory, of sorts. Xuenou's triumph, so meticulously orchestrated, was now teetering precariously on the edge of collapse. Yet, Zhiyan felt no satisfaction, only a weary resignation. She glanced at the adjacent room where her 3 children, her precocious little conspirators, slept. Their innocent faces, even in slumber, held a seriousness that belied their age. They had maneuvered tonight with a cunning that both impressed and unsettled her. A soft knock startled her. It was Anran, her eldest, her eyes bright with an unsettling alertness. "Mama, we have everything." Her voice was a hushed whisper, as if divulging a state secret. Zhiyan's heart tightened. She knew what everything meant. The strands of hair painstakingly collected from Huo Tingjun's coat. The discarded napkin from his table, a potential source of DNA. Even a hotel room key, procured with a devious ingenuity that made Zhiyan question whether she was raising children or master spies. "Anran," she began, the words catching in her throat. Was she truly comfortable with this charade? With using her children, however brilliant they were, in this elaborate game of deception? But then the image of Xuenou's smug face flashed before her, the memory of her father's cold indifference, and the years of unjust exile solidified her resolve. "Show me." The children gathered around her, their faces alight with a mixture of excitement and childish pride. They laid out their trophies, the hair, the napkin, the key, like precious jewels on display. Zhiyan's stomach churned. This felt wrong, illicit. Yet, a part of her, a dark, vengeful part she had long tried to suppress, whispered that it was necessary. "Little sister, did you get Huo Tingjun's hair?" Anran asked, her voice laced with an almost professional detachment. The youngest, their cherubic-faced hacker extraordinaire, nodded solemnly. "From his coat. The best sample." A shiver ran down Zhiyan's spine. These weren't just children, they were weapons she had unknowingly forged in the fires of her own misfortune. Later, Huo Tingjun sat alone in his study, the events of the ball replaying in his mind. He found himself drawn to Shen Zhiyan, a quiet magnetism he couldn't quite explain. He had been searching for a suitable wife, someone whose birthdate aligned with his horoscope, a prerequisite insisted upon by his mother. Shen Zhiyan fit the criteria perfectly, yet he felt no spark, no connection. With Zhiyan, however, there was an undeniable intrigue. He remembered the flash of intelligence in her eyes, the quiet strength in her demeanor. He was interrupted by a knock. It was Yan Lang, his younger brother, a smirk playing on his lips. "Brother, I hear you've acquired a rather unique entourage." The children, emboldened by their previous success, had decided to take a more direct approach. They had cornered Huo Tingjun, their small faces earnest, their proposals audacious. They offered to treat his recurring leg pain, a condition no doctor had been able to alleviate, in exchange for a rather exorbitant fee. "I see you developing quantum computing technology," Anran had stated, her tone matter-of-fact, "consider it compensation." Huo Tingjun, initially amused, found himself increasingly intrigued by their confidence, their almost supernatural understanding of his condition. Zhiyan, when she heard of her children's latest scheme, felt a wave of exasperation wash over her. "A billion," she exclaimed, her voice a mix of disbelief and amusement. Her children were certainly ambitious. But looking at their determined faces, at the unwavering belief in their eyes, she couldn't bring herself to scold them. Perhaps, she thought, a little audacity was exactly what they needed in this world that had shown them so little kindness. "Fine," she conceded, a small smile playing on her lips. "But if this goes wrong, you're explaining it to Mr. Hua." The children exchanged triumphant glances, their secret plan falling into place. They had studied Huo Tingjun, his habits, his preferences, his vulnerabilities. They had calculated their moves with the precision of seasoned chess players. They knew their mother deserved better than a life of exile and hardship. They knew she deserved happiness, and they were determined to secure it for her, even if it meant bending the rules, even if it meant orchestrating a series of carefully calculated accidents and coincidences. As Zhiyan prepared to treat Huo Tingjun's leg, a sense of anticipation hung heavy in the air. She knew this was a gamble, a high-stakes game with an uncertain outcome. But for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope, a fragile ember ignited by the fierce love and unwavering loyalty of her children. She was no longer alone in this fight. She had her own small army, her own band of brilliant, mischievous, and utterly devoted warriors, and together, they would face whatever the future held. The night, once filled with anxiety and uncertainty, now held a promise, a whisper of a different kind of future, a future where they could finally rewrite their own narrative. And as she looked into the eyes of her children, she knew, with a certainty that settled deep within her bones, that they would win. The opulent Huo residence felt stifling, the air thick with unspoken accusations and half-truths. Shen Zhiyan sat on the plush sofa, her 3 children clustered around her like ducklings seeking shelter from a storm. The lavish surroundings felt alien, a stark contrast to the modest life they had carved out for themselves. A flicker of unease danced in her stomach, a premonition that the fragile peace they had found was about to shatter. How long can I keep this up? How long before the truth unravels? Huo Tingjun watched them, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. He'd asked her about her past, her expulsion from the Shen family. Her carefully constructed facade threatened to crumble under the weight of his gaze. "What are they like?" he asked, his voice low and steady, his gaze fixed on the children. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "He suspects something." "They're lively," she managed, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "A handful, sometimes." Each word felt like a betrayal, a further knot in the web of lies she'd woven. "Don't you think these kids look a bit like you?" Hui Yanlang, Tingjun's younger brother, remarked, his voice laced with a hint of amusement. He leaned back in his chair, observing the scene with a detached curiosity that unnerved her. Shen Zhiyan's breath hitched. Her carefully crafted mask threatened to slip. "He sees it. He sees the resemblance." "Children often resemble their mothers," she responded, her voice strained, forcing a calmness she didn't feel. The room felt suffocating, the silence punctuated by the soft breaths of her children. Suddenly, the door burst open and Mrs. Huo swept in, a whirlwind of silk and disapproval. Her sharp eyes landed on Zhiyan, lingering on the children. "The DNA results are back," she announced, her voice laced with ice. Zhiyan's blood ran cold. The air crackled with tension. Zhiyan felt a dizzying wave of nausea wash over her. This is it. The end. She clutched her children closer, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The room seemed to tilt, the opulent furnishings blurring around the edges. "The probability of parentage is 0, Mrs. Huo declared, her voice echoing in the sudden silence. Xuenou, who had been hovering in the background, let out a gasp, a theatrical display of shock and disbelief. Zhiyan felt a surge of icy fear, followed by a strange sense of relief. It's over. They know. But then, Huo Tingjun spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "They're not my kids." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Zhiyan stared at him, her mind reeling. What was he doing? Xuenou's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Her face contorted with rage and frustration. But the birth certificate. The dates, she stammered, her voice shrill with desperation. Her eyes darted between Tingjun and Zhiyan, a mixture of fear and accusation swirling within them. Hui Yanlang stepped forward, a file in his hand. The birth certificate is a forgery, Xuenou, he said, his voice calm and steady. And as for the dates, he paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. We've discovered some discrepancies in your records. It seems your birth date isn't quite what you've claimed. The room fell silent. Shen Zhiyan's face paled, the blood draining from her cheeks. She stumbled back, her eyes wide with terror. The realization of the trap she'd sprung for herself, the web of deceit she'd woven so carefully, was slowly dawning on her. Zhiyan watched, a strange sense of detachment washing over her. It's finally over. The police arrived shortly after, the metallic click of handcuffs echoing in the opulent room. As they led Shen Zhiyan away, her cries of protest and denial fading into the distance, Zhiyan felt a sense of exhaustion settle over her. The fight had been long and arduous, but it was finally over. Later that evening, at the hospital, Zhiyan found herself at Huo Tingjun's bedside. His leg, injured in a car accident, had been stubbornly refusing to heal. She examined him, her fingers probing gently, her mind racing. There's something more here. Something they've missed. A sudden intuition sparked within her. She ordered a new series of tests, her mind buzzing with possibilities. The results confirmed her suspicions. A rare nerve compression, easily overlooked, was the culprit. With a steady hand and a focused mind, she performed a minor procedure, relieving the pressure. The relief on Tingjun's face was palpable. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a warmth she hadn't seen before. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. Zhiyan met his gaze, her heart skipping a beat. In that moment, the masks they both wore seemed to melt away, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath. He sees me. He truly sees me. As she left the hospital that night, the city lights blurring around her, Zhiyan felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The truth was out. The deception was exposed. And in the wreckage of the lies, a new beginning was taking shape. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. The hope for a life free from secrets and shadows, a life where she could finally be herself. A life, perhaps, with the man who had seen through her lies and chosen her anyway. The opulent Huo residence, a testament to generations of accumulated wealth, felt colder than usual to Shen Zhiyan. The marble floors, usually gleaming under the crystal chandeliers, seemed to radiate a chill that seeped into her bones. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs, a counterpoint to the hushed whispers echoing through the grand hallways. This was it. The culmination of years of silent suffering, of carrying the weight of injustice, of protecting her children from the shadows of her past. Today, the truth would finally be unveiled. She glanced at her children, their small faces a mixture of apprehension and excitement, their hands instinctively reaching for hers. Their innocence, their unwavering trust, was the fuel that kept her going. She would not fail them. Shen Zhiyan, draped in a designer dress that screamed extravagance, paced the ornate living room like a caged animal. Her carefully crafted composure had finally cracked, replaced by a desperate, flickering anxiety. The news of Shen Zhiyan's return, coupled with the shocking revelations about the falsified birth date, had shattered her meticulously constructed world. The Huo fortune, the status, the life she had so desperately craved, were slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. "It's not fair," she muttered, her voice barely a whisper, yet laced with venom. "It should have been me." The years of resentment, of living in Zhiyan's shadow, had festered into a consuming bitterness. She wouldn't let Zhiyan win. Not now, not ever. The heavy oak doors swung open, revealing Huo Tingjun, his presence commanding the room's attention. His face, usually an impassive mask, was etched with a mixture of weariness and resolve. Behind him stood his mother, Mrs. Hua, her expression unreadable, and Hui Yanlang, his gaze fixed on Shen Zhiyan with a knowing intensity. The air crackled with unspoken tension. Shen Zhiyan's breath caught in her throat. This was the moment of truth. She straightened her spine, her hand tightening around her children's. Their small bodies pressed against her, seeking comfort in her strength. She met Huo Tingjun's gaze, a flicker of defiance sparking in her eyes. She had nothing left to lose. Shen Xuenou, Huo Tingjun's voice cut through the silence, sharp and cold. The charade ends now. His words, though measured, carried the weight of finality. Shen Xuenou flinched, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. Her eyes darted between Huo Tingjun and Shen Zhiyan, a desperate plea forming on her lips. Tingjun, please, you have to believe me. She's lying. She's always been jealous of me. The words tumbled out, laced with a frantic desperation. Inside, a cold dread was spreading through her veins. She knew, with a chilling certainty, that her game was up. I want you to get down on your knees and apologize to me. Shen Zhiyan's voice, though quiet, resonated with a power that surprised even herself. The years of suppressed anger, of swallowed tears, had forged a steel core within her. She would no longer be silenced. Shen Xuenou stared at her, incredulous. Apologize? To you? Her voice cracked with disbelief. You, the disgraced daughter who was thrown out of our family. You, who Huo Tingjun cut her off, his voice laced with ice. Enough. We have all the proof we need. Your manipulations, your lies, your deceit, it's all documented. He produced a folder, thick with evidence, and placed it on the table. The thud echoed through the silent room. Shen Xuenou's face paled. The blood drained from her lips, leaving them ashen. Yanlang, Huo Tingjun addressed his brother, his voice devoid of emotion. Call the authorities. He turned his gaze back to Shen Xuenou, his eyes filled with a cold disdain. You will face the consequences of your actions. Shen Xuenou collapsed onto a nearby chair, her body trembling. The realization of her impending downfall crashed over her like a tidal wave. The wealth, the status, the man she had so desperately coveted all gone. A choked sob escaped her lips, the sound of shattered dreams echoing through the opulent room. As the authorities led Shen Xuenou away, a strange calmness descended upon Shen Zhiyan. The weight that had been crushing her for so long finally lifted. She had fought for her truth, for her children, and she had won. She looked at Huo Tingjun, his gaze now soft, a flicker of warmth in his eyes. He stepped closer, his voice a low murmur, only for her to hear. The person I want to marry is Shen Zhiyan. He held her gaze, his eyes searching hers. The real Shen Zhiyan. A wave of emotion washed over her, a mixture of relief, gratitude, and a burgeoning hope. She looked down at her children, their faces beaming with joy, their small hands gripping hers tighter than ever. This was their victory too. Mrs. Hua, who had been watching the scene unfold with a thoughtful expression, stepped forward. Zhiyan, my dear, she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. Your children are welcome here. This is their home now. She reached out and took Zhiyan's hand, a warm, reassuring gesture. I was wrong about you, she admitted, a flicker of a smile playing on her lips. You are the daughter-in-law I've always wanted for Tingjun. Tears welled up in Shen Zhiyan's eyes, tears of joy, of healing, of finally finding her place. She looked at Huo Tingjun, his hand outstretched towards her. He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. Will you marry me, Zhiyan? He asked, his voice filled with a tenderness she hadn't heard before. She looked at him, at her children, at the woman who had finally accepted her. A profound sense of peace settled over her. She took his hand, her voice clear and strong. I do.